Right friends, welcome back to newspaper editorials discussion for 21st March, and from today onwards first 6 to 7 minutes I will concentrate on what are important news for the day, and subsequent time will be for analysis. Why I decided to start like this is because if you do not know the details of the news item, it is very difficult to understand the analysis. Normally editorials or related articles appear 2-3 days after the news. So, to know the news also in detail, this I felt very much essential. So, the first part is news for a while, then the second part will be analysis. So, if you look at the news for a while, this is Vodafone Idea merged to create Giant. Here the merger of Vodafone Idea. So, here Idea Cellular, all of you are familiar, this is Kumaramangalam Birla led telecommunications major, and if someone talks about Vodafone, Vodafone is headquartered in UK, and please do not forget foreign direct investment is 100% allowed in telecom sector, whereas in banking sector it is 74%. Please understand this difference. And this telecom sector 100% FDI is allowed. So, Vodafone, this parent company is based in UK. So, this Idea Cellular will merge with Vodafone, and now the merged entity will be the country's largest. So, after merger, this Vodafone Idea, after the merger, totally the company will be the country's largest, not only in terms of subscriber base, but also in terms of revenue share. So, if you look at today's entity after merger, it will have 35% customer market share and 41% revenue market share. And please understand, the telecom companies are not in good health. The overall debt of the telecom firms put together is around 4.3 lakh crores of rupees. In India, basically average revenue per user is substantially low. It is lesser than rupees 100 average revenue per user. Though India has got around 100 crores of mobile subscribers, average revenue per user is substantially less. Now Reliance Jio is betting on data. So, with the entry of Reliance Jio, this consolidation is taking place. So, what is meant by consolidation? Consolidation is basically merging of various entities or amalgamation of various entities. This is happening because a few years ago there were 13 telecom companies in the country, and now ultimately after this Vodafone Idea merger, this will be one. Then Airtel and Telenor are merging, and subsequently this will be one company. Then Reliance Communications Aircel MTS merger already took place. So, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, fourth one is Reliance Jio. Then BSNL, MTNL, these two are government owned. MTNL is giving telecom services in Mumbai, Delhi metropolitan areas as well as in Mauritius, if I am not wrong. So, these two are also likely to merge shortly. So, from now onwards you will be left with 3 or 4 private telecom companies and 1 public sector telecom company. So, this consolidation is taking place after the arrival of Reliance Jio. Quite fast it is going on, right. So, this is about this news item, and this statistics are basically after the merger, this Vodafone Idea merged entity will be the largest in the country, right. Look into the next one. Filling high court vacancies on war footing by Kehar. So, previously there was difference of opinion between Supreme Court and the government, and now that is solved. This memorandum of procedure was clear, and please do not forget, along with Supreme Court we have 24 high courts in the country. The country has got 24 high courts, and the total strength of judges is 1079, and because of the issues of first National Judicial Appointments Commission, subsequently Memorandum of Procedure. So, almost 2 years time was lost in this standoff between judiciary and the executive, and now these vacancies are to be filled as early as possible. So, around 40 to 45% of vacancies are there in high courts, and the maximum strength of Supreme Court judges is 31, please do not forget. So, this memorandum of procedure was now cleared. So, I would not like to spend much time. Previously government, that is the government came up with National Judicial Appointments Commission, but it was struck down by Supreme Court, and subsequently to increase more transparency, Supreme Court came up with the memorandum of procedure, but there were differences between center and the Supreme Court, and this was struck up for quite a few months, and now finally this memorandum of procedure is cleared. This was the likely composition of National Judicial Appointments Commission, but was struck down by Supreme Court, and now memorandum of procedure is finalized. Two basic points of dispute were cleared between Supreme Court and the executive. One is with regard to national security clause. In the name of national security clause, the recommendations of the collegium of the Supreme Court can be vetoed by the government by giving suitable reasons, but this is the collegium has finally reserved the right to reiterate a judicial name in case it is not satisfied with government's reasons for vetoing it. So, finally Supreme Court kept with regard to national security clause the final power it kept. Then the second issue is secretariats will be set up in Supreme Court and each of the high courts, basically to maintain databases on judges and assist the collegium in the Supreme Court and the high courts in selection of judges. So, finally Supreme Court collegium agreed for setting up of secretariats. So, these two things are cleared, and now the standoff between the Supreme Court as well as the executive with regard to the memorandum of procedure is finally gone away. So, NJAC became history. Now, memorandum of procedure is also streamlined, and let us expect from now onwards required transparency in the appointment of judges by the Supreme Court, right. So, here some more information as per this article. Total sanctioned strength of judicial officers in district and subordinate courts is 21,000. Out of 21,000, around 5,000 vacancies are there, and in the lower courts there are 2.7 crore cases pending. 2.7 crore pending cases are there in lower courts, and 10% are more than 10 years. So, this says about the sorry state of affairs in Indian judiciary. Look at the third one, green nod for neutrino project suspended. What is this neutrino project? Neutrinos are subatomic particles. Here please recollect the two scientists, one from Japan, one from Canada, in the year 2015 got the Nobel Prize for the neutrino research. They found that they have mass. Previously it was thought they do not have mass, but these two scientists proved that they have mass, and for that they were awarded this prize, Nobel Prize for 2015. And about neutrinos, neutrinos basically they throws more light for to understand how the universe has evolved, and they are second most abundant particles after photons. After photons, they are the second most abundant particles, and trillions of them pass through our bodies every second without interacting with any other substance, and they are uncharged and created in nuclear reactions and radioactivity decay chains. And please understand, neutrinos are having three flavors. One is muon, tau and electron. So, there are three types. One is electron, second one is tau, the third one is muon. So, this is basically about neutrons. neutrinos. So, neutrinos are minuscule particles created in nuclear reactions, and they are created in objects such as sun, stars, nuclear power plants. As I have already told you, neutrinos are of three types. They are muon, tau and electron, and now as per the research of these two scientists, it was proved beyond a doubt that they have mass. So, neutrinos are subatomic particles which rarely interact with anything else. So, this is about neutrons and this is about neutrinos. Sometimes I uttered wrongly neutrons, it is not neutrons, neutrons are different. We are talking about neutrinos, right. So, these particles are subatomic particles, these are neutrinos, please understand. And if you look at the last year, please recollect certain things: RLVTD experiment of ISRO, scramjet experiment of ISRO, cryogenic engine experiment of ISRO, LIGO experiment last year, then this neutrino project, then Wanganui legal status, then Western Ghats ecologically sensitive area. At the same time, with one particular ink, yesterday there was some news report in the Hindu. At the same time, 100 times more faster this Wi-Fi through the infrared rays. So, these are all important if you look at civil services preliminary examination. So, let us go ahead with neutrinos. So, here the present news item is with regard to India Neutrino Observatory. This is the brainchild of APJ Abdul Kalam. APJ Abdul Kalam proposed this India Neutrino Observatory. It is supposed to come up in Theni district of Tamil Nadu, and now this Green Tribunal here, now National Green Tribunal stated that it is within 5 kilometers of interstate boundary or within a notified national park, hence it is to be considered as category A project. So, it requires some more procedures to be followed. So, it has to get clearance from National Board for Wildlife also, because of the reason it is within 5 kilometers distance of Mathikettan Shola National Park in Idukki district of Kerala. So, the process has to go afresh and they have to obtain this fresh approval for this neutrino project. So, there is another hurdle for this neutrino project. So, I have listed here, this is the brainchild of APJ Abdul Kalam, but it is struck up for the past several years in procedural wrangles. And in the world, there is a Dune experiment. This is in United States of America. This is a deep underground neutrino experiment, and it is the international experiment for neutrino science and proton decay studies. Right, we will leave this discussion here. Ganga Yamuna termed as living persons. And please recollect the news item a few days ago in New Zealand, a river revered by Maori tribe. Maori tribe are in New Zealand and they consider one particular river as their utmost revered. So, here there is a Wanganui river. This Wanganui river in New Zealand was declared as a living entity for the first time in the world. Please understand, in the world for the first time a river was declared as a living entity. The river name is Wanganui river. This Wanganui river is in New Zealand, right. So, that is basically with the suggestion from Maori tribe. So, what is the meaning of this living entity? The meaning is, now the local Maori tribes, now they can assert their rights, or you can say it means that the river can be represented at legal proceedings to protect its interests. Basically, to protect its interests, the river can be represented as a legal entity by somebody working on its behalf, right. So, on similar lines now, in India for the first time, Uttarakhand High Court for the first time declared Ganga Yamuna as living entities. Ganga, Yamuna for the first time in our country are declared as living entities. So, please understand about this Wanganui river in New Zealand, right. So, now these two rivers will have legal status with rights, duties and liabilities. So, who are the parents for this? That means to protect the interests of these two rivers, Ganga and Yamuna, the parents are Director of Namami Gange program, Uttarakhand Chief Secretary and Advocate General of Uttarakhand. They will serve as the parents for the rivers. Basically, it was declared as living entity so as to protect its interests. So, please remember this aspect as well as this Wanganui river, which was declared as a living entity. Kishan Ganga off the menu in Indus talks. This Indus Water Commission, India and Pakistan began discussions on the Indus Water Commission. This is 113th Indus Water Commission meeting, and the disputes, or you can say the issues pertaining to Kishan Ganga and Ratley were not discussed. Please understand, Kishan Ganga is the subsidiary of, or you can say Kishan Ganga river is the tributary of Jhelum river. So, Kishan Ganga project is on the tributary of Jhelum river, and this Ratley is on Chenab river, please do not forget, along with Ratley, Baglihar, these two are on Chenab rivers. So, there are some disputes with Pakistan and these issues were not discussed. So, this I told you several times, signed on 19th September 1960 when Jawaharlal Nehru was the Prime Minister, and World Bank was associated with this, and there is a feeling that more resources were allocated to Pakistan in Indus Water Treaty. So, here 3 eastern rivers are dedicated for Indian use, and the western rivers, 3 western rivers are given for Pakistani use with the minimum usage by country. Overall, out of this entire river system, 80% are allocated to Pakistan and only 20% are to India. So, I listed various ground realities for the past 56 years. There were several disputes with regard to Baglihar project, Kishan Ganga project, Ratley power project. Run of the river projects also Pakistan is objecting. That is the irony, right friends. Let us move on to the second part, analysis of editorials and articles. In the second part, Pakistan's head count. So, this is not that important for us. Let us spend 2 minutes on this. This Pakistan is going for its census. So, Pakistan is conducting national census after a gap of 19 years. It is supposed to do it every 10 years, just like in our country. Probably the legacy of this 10 years is because of British. British started the census somewhere in the 19th century itself, and from then onwards it became a routine exercise every 10 years. So, why Pakistan not conducted census beyond 10 years? That means why it waited till 19 years? The pressure from political parties and ethnic groups is the main reason for this. So, Pakistan, Punjab, there is a general feeling in Pakistan that Punjab is dominating both politically and economically. Sindh, this is another state. This Balochistan, Gwadar Port is situated in Balochistan, please do not forget. So, Gwadar Port is in Balochistan. So, these are states, or you can say provinces in Pakistan. So, Lahore is situated in Punjab and Karachi is situated in Sindh. And now, what are the reasons why Pakistan is not able to take a population census? I gave 3 reasons here. Several people migrated to Sindh and the population growth in Punjab is slowing down, and migrants in Sindh province may not be counted as they do not have national identity cards. So, that is why some pressure was there on this aspect. The second one is Punjabis. As I have already told you, Punjab dominates in most of the aspects of Pakistani life, and Punjab's current edge may be reduced because the population of Punjab is not increasing in comparison to other provinces. Then in Balochistan, local political groups have demanded that the process be delayed till hundreds of thousands of Afghan refugees are returned to Afghanistan. So, these are the aspects. Overall, these are the aspects which are not that important for us. Now the present Pakistan government appears to be stable both politically and economically, and in Pakistan's history this is the only government for the second time completing 5 years of tenure. Let us leave this discussion here. Sound fury but not much clout. The point here is now Russia appears to be making several noises across the world, but overall it may not be able to exercise its influence. Clout means influence. So, what are the reasons? What exactly is it doing? Can Russia gain the glory of previous USSR? After the disintegration of USSR in 1990s, Russia is formed. Now Russia is going quite aggressively. If you look at Syria, now if you look at Libya, Russia's actions are quite aggressive. So, Russia is going quite aggressively, and this article talks about can Russia influence political clout across the globe. Then Russia and the facts. Here the first part is Russia and the facts. Crimea, this was previously part of Ukraine. In examination perspective, somebody may ask you, where is Crimea? Crimea is in Black Sea, and this is the region annexed by Russia against the wishes of Western countries. Russia annexed Crimea, and it also controls Ukraine, eastern part of Ukraine. Russia also controls eastern part of Ukraine through the proxy rebels, which is not palatable to Western countries. Second point is it enjoys access to military facilities in Syria, Iran, Egypt, and very soon it is going to enter Libya also. Libya is also struck by civil war. Libya has got two governments, and in future Russia is going to enter Libya also. Syria, already its actions resulted towards end of the Syrian civil war, and now it struck equation with Turkey also, and it started relations with Pakistan. Pakistan is Cold War enemy to Russia. So, all these things point towards the aggressive Russian actions, but the article says finally that it may not be able to have influence as a superpower across the world. They have got several limitations on that, right. The next point is it has driven a formidable wedge between Turkey and NATO. Now, Turkey and Russia are involved in the peace process in Syria, and Russia has successfully drove a wedge between Turkey and NATO. Please do not forget, Turkey is a member of 28 member NATO and also deepened ties with Israel to Japan. Then the next point is it persuaded China to sign an agreement on global strategic stability, and both the sides held joint exercises in South China Sea. In South China Sea, both held joint exercises. All of you please recollect, a few months ago joint exercises were held in South China Sea by China and Russia. The next point is there are European and US sanctions. Why the sanctions were imposed? The sanctions were imposed against the accession of Crimea by Russia. So, but Russia's trade with Europe is still 4 times that of China. This suggests that China offers rather a limited safety net. Then, how the West is viewing Russia? As per the article, how the Western countries are viewing Russia. European countries and USA imposed sanctions subsequent to Crimea issue. At the Russian border, for the first time NATO forces were deployed, and in fact this alarmed even the neutral states, and Sweden is going to reintroduce conscription. What is the meaning of conscription? Conscription means it will become mandatory for the youth of the country for certain period to work in military forces. It will become mandatory. So, that is conscription, please understand. Then Russia's alleged election meddling in the US elections became a major issue, and South Asia game plan, what it is doing? In fact, it has not taken into consideration India's objections to hold its first ever joint drills with the Pakistani special forces. Pakistan is its Cold War enemy, and few months ago it started its first ever joint drills with the Pakistani special forces, and prior to that it agreed to sell 4 attack helicopters to Pakistan. Then if you look at Afghanistan, Russia's special envoy to Afghanistan declared that Taliban's interests objectively coincide with ours, and in fact Russia's intentions are very clear. It is systematically exaggerating the Islamic State's presence in Afghanistan. So, this is basically to weaken the United States of America and discredit that for whatever it has done to ensure peace in Afghanistan. So, if you look at the final part, what about Russia's economy and other aspects? Its trade with India, Pakistan and Iran have fallen in recent years. Then Russian aid to Afghanistan is also abysmally low. It is in no position to offer concessionary terms for significant defense sales to Pakistan. The point here to note is Russia's economy is not doing well. Then Pakistan is absorbing Chinese investment. More and more Chinese investment is expected in Pakistan, and India is looking at global foreign investment flows, and Russia has almost nothing to offer except the state dominated petroleum companies, right. So, here the essence of this paragraph is, as far as economic clout is concerned, Pakistan is dependent on China and India is dependent on global foreign investment flows. So, none of these countries are dependent on China. Russian arms sale continues to be a strategic factor in Indian defense policy, but this Russia's clout will be there as far as defense procurements are concerned. Two important aspects, please do not forget in recent times. If you look at Russia as far as the military sale is concerned, two things please do not forget. Recently, sale of advanced S-400 Triumph air defense missile system. So, an agreement was signed with Russia, and Russia will supply this advanced S-400 Triumph air defense missile system. So, if someone talks about this S-400 Triumph air defense missile system, this belongs to Russia, and at the same time second nuclear submarine is another case in point. So, Akula class of submarines. So, this Akula class of submarine, the second one, Russia recently agreed for lease to India. So, there is no doubt Russia's most advanced defense technology is its valuable asset. So, in South Asia, the Russia's clout will not be there. So, that is the essence of this article. We learned several things here. So, please understand that Russia's pole position may be difficult because of all these factors. So, framing the right prescription, as I have already told you on this is National Health Policy 2017. I am going to present by this weekend one separate capsule, and moreover two important points are there from this article. So, please go through these important points. India spends close to 5% of its GDP on health. So, this is everything, government expenditure, private expenditure, everything put together is 5% of GDP on health, whereas the public expenditure is just 1.15%. Please understand, India's spend on health, public expenditure by the governments, both central and state governments put together is 1.15%. Then here this 5% is total expenditure by the public, by the private, everything. and unfortunately in our country around 70% of the expenditure is out of pocket expenditure, and almost 4 to 7% of people are getting impoverished within the period of 10 years. If you look at the period of 2004 to 2014, 4% to 7% of the population are impoverished because of out of pocket expenditure. So, the goal is to reduce out of pocket expenditure. So, these things please go through, I listed out, and some more points I listed out, please go through them, but he is suggesting two important suggestions. One important suggestion is here, India needs to provide a higher level of allocation, that is one aspect, and each and every household is to be covered, each and every household is to be covered either through the higher level of allocation or through insurance. So, at present, let me tell you in a nutshell, at present 70% of the expenditure is out of pocket. During the past 10 years, 2004 to 2014, almost 4% to 7% of the population fell below poverty line because of out of pocket expenditure. So, the biggest issue before India is how to reduce out of pocket expenditure. Out of pocket expenditure can be reduced by two ways. One is increase higher level of allocation, second one is bring everyone into the insurance net. Higher level of allocation and bring everyone into the insurance net. So, these two aspects are to be ensured. Then the second suggestion is here a paradigm shift is required in control exercised by the government. Government's control on the private sector health infrastructure must be highly on the institutional lines, both in the form of pricing of the products and provision of health services by the private sector. They should be monitored in a close way. So, here there should be paradigm shift is required in the level of the control exercised by the government on private sector health providers. So, two things basically from this article. First suggestion is increase government expenditure, bring everyone into the insurance net by the support of center as well as states. Second one is exercise strict control over the private sector so that they cannot exploit the common man, right. Next issue, last issue is death of a fisherman. In fact, nothing is there from this article. He is narrating the incidents of death of one fisherman, but most important issue is there are two problems when you look at India, Sri Lanka fishermen's issue is concerned. We discussed around 1 or 2 weeks ago. This is international maritime boundary line. We discussed about what is maritime boundary, how it extends beyond the shoreline. All these things we discussed, and there are two issues. One is basically here in the overlapping zones, here what happens, the boundary will be equidistant from the baselines. So, this is the international maritime boundary, but most of the times Indian fishermen go into the Sri Lankan areas. That is the first problem. Then the second issue is bottom trawling. Bottom trawling basically disturbs the total ecosystem, and this mechanized bottom trawling takes place, and there must be some consensus with regard to this bottom trawling. So, these two issues we deliberated in detail in the previous lectures. So, these two are important aspects when someone looks at fishermen's issue between India and Sri Lanka. So, solution for the vexed issue I narrated last time. So, you can go through this slide. So, friends, with this we came to the end of today's editorial discussion. First part we discussed about important news items. Second part we discussed about analysis of various articles. So, this way we would like to continue from now onwards. So, please put forth your opinion on this. Have a nice day. Please do join at 12 o'clock. We are going to deliberate on GST. That was the editorial which appeared yesterday in The Hindu. Right, friends, have a nice day. Thank you.